Well, hi everyone. Once again, I want to thank you for choosing to be considered for a region captain. I believe it's one of the most important positions in the organization of Convention of States. But one of the things, you probably heard me mention this before. If you haven't, you will, that I see the district captain position as comparable to a line supervisor in the corporate world, but I see the region captain then as the manager over a number of line supervisors. And as the manager, there are some different skill sets required. And I think one of the most difficult skill sets is managing people. So now you may have had experience in the corporate world or some other organizations where you managed people like I did, but you have to understand that we're not managing employees here, and there is a difference. And we have to clearly understand that we are managing volunteers, not paid employees. So the most effective way to manage volunteers is to shift the perspective from that of a paid employee. Expect the same quality of service and provide the same support and guidance that you would an employee. You'll find that managing volunteers, a lot of the concepts that you learn as a manager of paid employees will apply, but there will always be that one difference, and that is that you're managing volunteers and not paid employees. Remember that as long as the role is clearly defined, the volunteer is choosing to fulfill their role and responsibilities. Therefore, they're choosing to be responsible. Well, so how do we handle this? Well, I'm going to discuss with you a concept that I came across in my research when I was doing some presentations for the state directors national call. And I came across this concept that I think applies to what we're trying to do as far as managing volunteers. So we have to create a culture of accountability and hold people accountable. I mean, now that's a concept, obviously, that we learned in the corporate world as well. Create a culture of accountability and hold people accountable. Well, here's one approach, and it's called SIMPLE, S-I-M-P-L-E. Now that's an acronym, as you can see. S stands for set expectations. I, invite commitment. M, measure progress. P, provide feedback. L, link to consequences. That's a very difficult part of this. And E, evaluate effectiveness. So let's go through each of these and briefly discuss each one so that we understand this approach. S, set expectations. The success of any organization comes down to one thing: how well it organizes its members to focus on the work and the work toward the same purpose. The volunteers need to know what is expected of them before they can be held accountable for anything. I can't emphasize the importance of this particular step. This is very, very important. Setting expectations. Volunteers, well, and employees as far as that's concerned, but volunteers need to know what's expected of them. The more clearly the expectations and goals are set up front, the less time will be wasted later clarifying or arguing about what was really expected. Okay? I, invite commitment. Now, just because your volunteers know what to do doesn't mean they'll do it. After goals and expectations are set, volunteers need to commit to achieving them. Volunteers are more likely to do this when they understand how the goals will benefit them personally and help move the organization forward. Once this connection is made, they are more likely to buy into the goals and actually welcome you holding them accountable for the results. Okay, M, measure progress. Information is needed to hold your volunteers accountable. Measure their ongoing performance and gauge whether or not they meet the goals and expectations to which they had previously committed. This is very important. Goals are only measurable when they are quantified. We struggle with this all the time in setting goals at the state level because I've always been taught that when you set a goal, it has to be measurable. So that is very important that any goal or objective be measurable. Measure the results and compare them to the employee's goal to discover the gaps that require further attention. What are the gaps? Where did they fall short of achieving the goal? All right, let's move on from M to the P, and that is provide feedback. Now, feedback won't solve problems by itself, okay? But it will open the door for problem-solving discussions and follow-up actions. The volunteer needs feedback to do a good job and improve in areas where performance is falling short of expectations. Most of the time, giving objective behavioral feedback is all it takes. Setting expectations followed by quality feedback is the backbone of holding someone accountable for results. All right, let's now then move from the P on to the L. Link to consequences. Well, sometimes volunteers need a little external motivation to live up to their commitments. When they struggle to reach their goals, they can be helped by administering appropriate consequences. Now, this part of the approach is difficult to understand because, we have limited consequences. Obviously, like I said, we're not dealing with paid employees. We can't affect an individual's pay. We can't demote them. Well, we can, but ultimately, obviously, you can remove the individual if the individual continues to not perform. But I think what we want to try and get to here is when we talk about consequences, we want to get to how is they're not performing, they're not achieving their goals, they're not living up to expectations. How is that affecting the rest of the organization? And I think those are the consequences that we're really talking about here. Okay? Okay, last, E, evaluate effectiveness. And review how the process has been handled, and put in a systematic and consistent method in place. And you'll find that when people are held accountable for the work that they get done, then it gets done. So holding people accountable. Once again, this is an approach. It's called SIMPLE. It's got some very good concepts involved in it. I still come back to setting the expectations, getting people to buy in and commit to achieving those expectations. And I think good people then will do their best to achieve those expectations. You just got to keep in mind that you're not dealing with paid employees here. We're talking about managing volunteers. Thank you.